Hey guys, DSLR Rookie here. My name's Tim, and today we're going to be looking at how we connect this to this so we can control recording and focus from the DJI Ronin S Gimbal. Let's check it out. So in June 2020, DJI released a firmware update for the Ronin S Gimbal to allow it to connect to more cameras. So you check it out on the compatibility list, and joy of joys, I found out that my trusty Canon 90d is on that list. So it now works with the DJI Ronin S with a cable connecting it, so you can start and stop recording, and you can control focus using a focus wheel for certain lenses. Brilliant, fantastic. Only problem is that DJI doesn't put all the information you need in one place. So there's the manual itself, the compatibility list, and I had to go and check out some YouTubers who'd done connections to other cameras to figure out how to do it. So I'm making this video to try and put all of that information in one place. The video is very much geared towards the Canon 90d. It might help you if you've got a different camera body and you're trying to do it, but you will have to do some research. This video is just on how to connect the Canon 90d to the DJI Ronin S. Hope it helps. So if you check the compatibility list from DJI, one of the things you'll see for the Canon 90d is that if it's in still photography mode on the camera, you won't be able to shoot video, and if the camera's switched to video mode, you can't shoot still photos. The other thing about the compatibility sheet is that it lists which camera lenses work with the system. Now, if the lens is on that list, it's going to work fine. If the lens isn't on that list, then it may or may not work with the gimbal follow focus. So yeah, we'll talk about that more later. But what you need is a compatible camera, and the Canon 90d is. You need a compatible lens, and then you need the right cable. This micro USB cable, it came with my DJI kit in the box. It's called the MCC-B cable. So check you've got that already. If you haven't got this, you won't be able to connect the two together. Should be in your box, in your pack, but if it isn't, you're going to have to get hold of one. So let's get into it and see if we can get this thing hooked up. So yeah, first step, we need to check the camera's firmware. So we need to go on the Canon website, find out what firmware version is the latest, and then we need to check on the camera to see if that's what's installed on there. Now, weird thing with the Canon 90d is if it's in video mode, you can't actually find the firmware information on the menu. You actually have to turn it into still photography mode, and then you can navigate through to it, no problem. You can see what the firmware is. So yeah, get the firmware updated, step one. Step two is to get your camera, to get your gimbal, to get it on there, mounted, and to get it balanced. So it's really important to do this because part of the update, software update for the firmware on the gimbal means that you've got to power the head on. So you need to have the camera in place to be able to do that. So once you've got your camera balanced on your gimbal, it's step three. And that's to go into your camera menu. We need to change a couple of settings. So the first one is on the very first shooting menu, you need to turn remote control setting to enabled. And then we need to navigate across to the second utilities menu. That's the one with the little spanner symbol. And on that, we need to turn the auto power off to disabled. Those two issues can cause problems with the functionality if you don't have those settings. So get those camera settings done, and we're ready for step four. The fourth step is to check that the firmware on your gimbal is up to date. So you need the DJI Pro Assistant for Ronin app on your computer, so get that downloaded. Once you've got that on there, we use the USB cable that came with the gimbal, plug that into the front port on the gimbal, plug it into your computer, open the app, and you can see if there's any updates available to install. Now, if you don't know how to do that, DJI did produce a video that I'll put a link in the description below. But there's a little bit of a discrepancy. The video tells you to keep the head powered off while you do it until the last step. When you actually plug it into the app tells you to keep it powered on. I don't think there's a problem particularly either way, but I tend to follow what the app says now because I think it's more up to date. So yeah, get your firmware updated on the Ronin S. So you've checked the firmware on your camera, you've balanced it on the gimbal, you've checked the settings on the camera, you've checked the firmware on your gimbal, and then you're ready for step five. And step five is hooking it up with the cable. We're going to hook it up with the DJI MCC-B cable, but before we plug that in, it's really important that we turn the camera power off and we turn the top power off for the gimbal for the gimbal head. Yeah, so we're not going to plug anything in until the camera and the gimbal are turned off. So we power everything off because apparently DJI say that if you plug into the gimbal when it's still powered on with one end of the cable, you can burn the cable out. So we don't want to do that. Make sure everything's off. Then we plug into the gimbal, we plug into the camera, and then we need to do a quick check just to see that everything's balanced okay. Now, when I tried it with the lenses that I was using, I didn't really need to rebalance, but I did check and everything was working fine. Depending on your setup, what you've got on there, you may just need to tweak the rebalancing a little bit because the cable's adding weight to one side. Great, so now we're ready to power up. Now, DJI say it's important to turn the gimbal on first and then the camera power on second. The reason is because otherwise the camera won't respond to the controls properly. So, turn the gimbal power on, turn the camera power on, and then you should notice that the red flashing light, which is up to the side of the focus wheel on the gimbal, that'll turn to green. Once it's green, we're all connected and we're nearly ready to go. Almost there. Step 6, we need to get the focus speed setting correct. So we need a phone or a tablet to do that. So we go to the Ronin app, open it up, and we click on Create. Once you're in the Create menu, you should see at the bottom there's a thing called Camera Settings. We go into Camera Settings and there's a slider which controls the focus speed. DJI say for the Canon 90D that needs to be set at 10 or less. So you can play around with that to see what setting works best for you, but no more than 10. What you might find is that if you try playing around with that and the camera isn't connected to the gimbal with a cable, you can't see the camera settings option on the Create menu at all. So it's only going to work if we've set it up as discussed, the cable's connected and everything's powered up. So we're ready to roll, we're ready to shoot, fantastic. Last thing is, should your lens be on autofocus or manual focus? Now, people have said different things online, but what I found was if it's on autofocus, then when you're using the follow focus wheel on the gimbal, you're kind of fighting against the autofocus. So I found better results to put the lens in manual focus, and so long as the lens is compatible, then it should work absolutely fine. So what about lenses that aren't on DJI's compatibility list? Well, I tried a few that I had access to. The first one was the 10 to 18mm f4.5 to 5.6 IS STM. This one seemed to work absolutely fine, so that was great. I then tried the Canon 18 to 135mm f3.5 to 5.6 IS STM, and again, that seemed to work absolutely fine with the follow focus. But then I started to run into problems. I tried the Sigma 18 to 35mm f1.8 art. I was gutted that the follow focus just didn't work with that. Similarly, the Canon 35mm f2 IS USM, I couldn't get that working with the follow focus. And the Canon Nifty 50 50mm f1.8 STM, it's the newer version with the metal mount, couldn't get the follow focus working with that one either. So yeah, hit and miss really. If it's on the compatibility list, it's going to work fine. If it's not on the compatibility list, it may or may not work. The ones that I got working were the 10 to 18mm and the 18 to 135mm Canon STM lenses, and those both seem to work fine with the follow focus. All the other lenses, you can still use it on the gimbal balance, not a problem. You can still start and stop recording, but you can't control the focus with a focus wheel. So there you go. I don't know if you've had different experiences or if there's more lenses you know that work with the system. Feel free to put those in the comments below. Otherwise, you might have to do some more research or just do trial and error like I did to figure out what works with it. But there we go. That's what worked for me. So that's it for today. If you've been trying to use the DJI Ronin S with a Canon 90D and different lenses, I'd love to hear from you. So please comment below. Let us know what lens you were trying, what worked, what didn't work, what did you learn from it, and how did you find it. I'd love to hear from you. Secondly, if you've enjoyed it today, if it's been useful, please hit that like button to help the channel grow. And I just want to say thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this journey. And I'll see you next time with DSLR Rookie. Stay safe, guys.